you ever feel tired, overwhelmed, ready to give up? You just want to quit whatever it is that you have that needs to get done. It could be anything. It could be in school with your doing your schoolwork or homework, whatever. It could be at work, staying focused on that project that needs to get done. It could be on a spiritual thing. It could be dealing with a sin that you are really having a hard time not committing this particular sin. And sometimes it's just meeting your commitment, which is where I am right now. I'm in a place where I'm already feeling burned out. I've been preaching weekly for 2 months now, and it started last week, and it's continued this week. And I just feel tired. I feel a bit overwhelmed. I have that little voice in my head telling me to just stop. And I want to use that, talk about how to overcome the temptation to stop, to not meet your commitments, to listen to that voice in your head when it's telling you to quit, when you've already committed to something, or when you know something is important and needs to be done. How do you overcome that? Well, I want to talk about 3 things. The first one is knowing your why. In the business world, they talk about having intrinsic and extrinsic motivators and how important the intrinsic ones are. The extrinsic are, like a bonus or a prize, that type of thing. Intrinsic is the internal motivators. What am I motivated by? What drives me? Maybe it's the financial need to support me and my family. Maybe it's because I work for the Lord, as it says in 1 Thessalonians. There could be a whole host of reasons. Maybe it's for position or status. There's a lot of reasons why people are intrinsically motivated. But what's important is that we know our why. So whatever it is that we have committed to, whatever it is that we know is important, we need to know our why. Why am I doing what I'm doing? And so intrinsic motivation is important, is very valuable. And big companies are learning that and trying to communicate your intrinsic motivators more than the extrinsic. Because things like a bonus, they're nice in the moment, but that's not what keeps me coming to work every day. It's the internal drive. Something within me must help me to get focused. My boss can't constantly stand over me and make it happen. And so knowing your why, knowing your purpose is very important. And so for this, I wanted to quit preaching on a weekly basis. And the little voice in my head saying, this isn't that big a deal. It's for your own personal edification. Nobody cares, which is probably true. That's what's funny about that little voice in your head, is it knows all the logic, the reasons that you would give up. It's pretty smart. It's kind of in your mind. So it knows you. It knows your weaknesses. It knows what you're willing to give up and what you're not willing to give up. So knowing your why becomes very critical. And once you know why you're doing it, why you've made your commitment, and you've decided that this is something that needs to be done, make it a non-decision. There is no decision point. I think of the runner that's in a race and falls down. Unless their leg is broken or something, even if they're bleeding and hurt, if they're limping, they all get up and finish the race. And it's so inspirational, and we see it and say, why did you keep going? You could have just stopped. There's no way you could have won. It wasn't a decision for them. That little voice was telling them the same thing. Why? Why are you doing this? You did a lot of preparation. You did good. and this thing happened and you fell, just don't worry about it. You don't have to finish this one. I think of there's a race called a steeplechase, I think is what it's called. And the runner, there's like a wall on the track with water past it, and you jump up on the wall, and usually 1 foot goes into the water as you're jumping over it. And every once in a while, somebody will miss that wall and tumble into the water. And I can just imagine myself being in that position. What would I do? I know in my mind that little voice in my head would be, just go find a rock. That's where you live now. Just go hide under it. That's where you're going to grow old, and just go die in your shame. It's over. But inevitably, every time they get up and they keep running. That's how we need to be about our choices, about our commitments, about the things that are important to us. Is we need to know our why, and we need to make it a non-decision. If I fall, I'm getting up and I'm going to keep running, no matter what life throws at me. It doesn't matter that we had a gospel meeting and my evenings were taken up this week. It's Saturday. Go preach. Yes, I don't feel as prepared as I could be. I don't have any notes. I just have my Bible. No notes in it. I spent very little time preparing this week. And so that makes me uncomfortable. I don't want to do this today. I don't want to be here. The little voice kept telling me, you don't have to. Just put it off. And the little voice won at various times during the week, where I could have spent a little time preparing, and I didn't. But the decision had already been made that I'm getting up. So, okay, you procrastinated. That's not a good thing. But you're still going to do it when it's a non-decision. The race must be run. Going along with that voice, that little voice that just knows everything. You need to know that your mind is so powerful, and that is not your mind. That isn't your mind. That little voice is in there talking to your mind, but you still have the choice. You can ignore that voice and say, I'm going to keep going. That's your choice. You can make it a non-decision. Your mind can override it, and you can just go, even though the voice is telling you to stop. Your mind is so powerful and so capable. And so don't take it lightly. And along with that, practice on things that aren't important. When the voice tells you to stop on something that doesn't matter, keep going, just for the discipline, just for the practice. Use it as a moment to grow. Use it as a moment to overcome that little voice that wants you to have an easy life. It's not that it's ill-intentioned. It's trying to make your life easier. And yet, it's wrong so often because it makes you soft. It makes you weak. It makes you undisciplined. So don't give in to it. And that could just be in your diet and exercise. It could be in things that just truly don't matter. Am I going to mow the grass today or tomorrow? Instead of putting it off till tomorrow, mow it today. Just don't procrastinate when you could procrastinate. All right, the third thing. You know your why. You're conquering the voice in your head. And this one is third for a reason, and I think it's because it's the least valuable. And that's time management. At work, I do something called a RAIL. It just stands for Recurring Action Item List. And I've been doing RAILs for the last 10 years or so. And all it is a list of what I do on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly basis. It's got my projects that I'm working on that are kind of longer in nature. And I continue to update this RAIL over and over. And I go to it on a daily basis as reminders of what needs to be done. And I do that for focus, so that when I don't know what's next, I have a list of things that I can be doing. Maybe it's not the most important thing that I could be working on right now, but I know what needs to be done because I have my action item list. Having a purpose, knowing what's ahead, is crucial. Don't just wait for things to come in. Already use time to prepare for what you're going to be doing. Use good time management. And time management comes with thinking about what needs to be done. How long is it going to take? Who all is involved in whatever the project is? Maybe I even need to put a waterfall chart together to get a critical path so that I can get a good completion date and a status to my boss and all those kinds of things. Really what's important is I know the task that I can be working on. And maybe this task, it takes an hour, but I can do 15 minutes of it now and then 15 minutes of it later and so on and get it done. Others are a meeting that it's a hard deadline. I have to be here at this particular time. I have to do this preparation before that. And so everything has to be done in its proper time. But with a rail, I'm able to handle both. I can juggle all the balls. And it's very effective for me. But good time management, and that's not the only way. You can Google it and probably find better ways than what I do. It's just a simple and effective one for me because I don't like spending a lot of time on it. So those are three things. Let's read a couple of passages. Let's start in 1 Corinthians chapter 9. Starting in verse 23. I do all things for the sake of the gospel, so that I may become a fellow partaker of it. Do you not know that those who run in a race all run, but only one receives the prize? Run in such a way that you may win. Everyone who competes in the games exercises self-control in all things. They then do it to receive a perishable wreath, but we an imperishable. Therefore I run in such a way as not without aim. I box in such a way as not beating the air. But I discipline my body and make it my slave, so that after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified. Do you see why it's important to keep your commitments, to let your yes be yes? Do you see why even something that's not important becomes important? It's for the sake of discipline. It's because we're running a race, and it's a long-distance race. And the preparation for that in spiritual things begins with just normal everyday life things. If I intend to overcome a difficulty in my spiritual life, I must begin with little things that are just nothing decisions, but things that need to be done. Just take care of it. Just discipline yourself. Okay, one more. Hebrews chapter 12, beginning in verse 1. Therefore, since we have so great a cloud of witnesses surrounding us, let us also lay aside every encumbrance and the sin which so easily entangles us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. For consider him who has endured such hostility by sinners against himself, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. This is our why. Jesus, who endured the cross for us. He is the one that makes it so that we won't grow weary and lose heart, because we consider him. We consider what he went through, what he taught, the blessings of having Jesus as our Savior. That's such a beautiful passage. And Jesus is such a great example to us. So let's have discipline. Let's overcome obstacles. And there's nothing more important than overcoming spiritual obstacles. The sin that so easily entangles us. It's so true, isn't it? It's so easy to be entangled in sin. And it can be so easy to be pure if we will practice discipline, if we will stop listening to the little voice in our head, if we will grow strong in truth and in spirit. That's the end of my lesson. Thank you for your attention.